I started out working at NASA.
You have this big drug trafficking ring.
Do I sound like a demented, paranoid schizophrenic or not?
Wow. Well, I would have to be like right next to you and looking you in the eyes to answer that honestly.
It has to do with your heart, people. You have lost your heart.
John McAfee was the creator of McAfee Antivirus, a program that you've probably dealt with if you've used a PC since 1987 or even a Mac since 1996. John, however, isn't the stereotypical programming nerd that you would think of, not even close. Whether you're a new viewer or a regular, I promise that you've never seen anything like this. We're talking NASA, pirates, drug labs next to Mayan temples, murder mysteries, presidential runs, personal armies, flying motorcycles, tax fraud, and more. But of course, before we get into that, we need to ask, just who is John McAfee, and how did he get himself into all of this? John is drastically older than anyone else that I've ever spoken on this channel, being born all the way back on September 15th, 1945, so as you can probably guess, there aren't any videos or live streams of a younger John that we can go through. But back in 2012, John did an interview with Wired.com. In this interview, John gave us a lot about his history up until that point. But before we go any further, I want to remind people of something. Almost everyone who starts to do drugs or alcohol heavily thinks that they are somehow the exception and nothing bad will happen to them. Well, John actually is the exception. Like, this is a picture of him before he died in 2021. He was 75 and looked like he was in his 40s. Compare that to Ralph, who is in his early 40s and looks like he's 80. John's first real job was with the Missouri Pacific Railroad, where he would route trains all day. Now, to John, this was a pretty boring and tedious job. Nowadays, it would be pretty common to just go on your phone when things are getting that dull, but this was the 1960s, and there were no smartphones. So John did something that would make his job a little bit more enjoyable. After 6 months, McAfee's system began to churn out optimized train routing patterns. Unfortunately, he had also discovered LSD. He would drop acid in the morning, go to work, and route trains all day. Well, then one day, John decided that instead of doing LSD at work, he would do an entire bag of DMT. I've never done it, so I can't say what it would be like, but Joe Rogan has, and this is how he described it.
That one in specific, that is DMT.
That's very DMT.
That is DMT.
Wow, that is hardcore DMT.
Hardcore DMT. When you do DMT, you see that. And you see that in a way where it's so much more spectacular than anything you ever see under normal consciousness.
Is your body there? Like, are you
it's
like...
not a body thing. You're not thinking of
but
your body. Your
yourself.
eyes are closed.
I mean, I'm myself.
Yeah, you're yourself.
Like, you look around?
You're yourself,
Dude,
but
if you open your eyes...
vulnerable.
Here's what's crazy, so if you close your eyes, it's like they're open somewhere else.
John, however, described the experience like this. People asked him questions, but he didn't understand what they were saying. The computer was spitting out train schedules to the moon. He couldn't make sense of it. He ended up behind a garbage can in downtown St. Louis, hearing voices and desperately hoping that nobody would look at him. Well, John never went back to work the next day, and I don't think that many people can blame him. John would then go on to work for another transportation organization as a computer programmer. This time, NASA. While it's impossible to determine exactly what John did, there's no denying that his skills were used to get men on the moon back in 1969 during Apollo 11, and no, John was not employed with NASA during Apollo 1. John would then bounce around tech companies throughout the 1970s like Xerox, but it wasn't until 1983 when it all started to catch up to him. While working at a company called Omex, John would be doing lines of coke and drinking a bottle of scotch a day at his desk. One of his old co-workers, Rebecca Costa, would even talk about this on her show, The Costa Report.
I want to let our listeners know that John McAfee and I worked together early in our careers in Silicon Valley. In 1983, we were executives for the first optical storage company, Omex Corporation. Mr. McAfee was in charge of engineering, and I headed up product marketing. And during that time, we had a respectful and cordial working relationship. Though recently, I was surprised to hear him admit in his interview with Wired magazine that he'd been dealing and consuming large amounts of cocaine while we worked together. I admit that I was a bit square then, and I remain so to this day. And so these kinds of things frequently just go right over my head. But that said, even operating at half power, McAfee proved to be a remarkable engineer and a forward thinker. Today, Mr. McAfee is completely drug-free, and we're going to learn more about where this unconventional genius is taking us next.
John would then do something that you wouldn't really expect, and after going to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, decided to begin a sober life, just in time too, because on the other side of the world, in Pakistan of all places in 1986, two brothers known as the Alvi brothers created what many people believe is the world's first computer virus. Now, I don't want to bore you with the technical details, but this really wasn't the world's first computer virus. The concept for a computer virus was first thought up in 1949, with the first actual virus being made by Raytheon in 1971. The virus was named Creeper and reached a maximum of 28 computers. Pretty cool, huh? Well, Creeper was also made with an antivirus called Reaper that would remove it. Brain, however, did not come with its own antivirus. Instead, the Alvi brothers put their names, phone number, and store address so that way you could contact them to have the virus removed. The brothers thought that this would have been a local thing only, but no, Brain was able to spread around the entire world, infecting every IBM computer that it made contact with, causing the first real computer virus scare. Well, one day, a now sober John McAfee, while reading the newspaper, realized how they made it and how you could unmake it. John then got to work on the world's first public antivirus software. Not only was it the first real consumer antivirus software, but it was also free. The software was able to be downloaded through bulletin board systems, a kind of pre-internet for no cost. However, corporations and governments that wanted to use it, on the other hand, would have to pay a licensing fee. One of the funniest things that John did business-wise was donating 28 virus-filled computers to the US government, so that way they would have to use his software to get rid of them. This worked out very well for John, with his company raking in about $14 million a year adjusted for inflation in today's money, and was able to retire in 1994, where he would eventually start a yoga institute on his property. John also acted as a consultant for startup companies, routinely donated computers to schools, and would purchase ads in the newspaper that discouraged drug use. I know what a lot of you are thinking right now, but remember, at this point, John had been completely sober for around 17 years. John would also get into a new hobby called aerotrekking. Essentially, it's a combination of a trike and a paraglider that allows the user to fly at low altitudes. By 2007, John had fallen in love with the sport, enough so that he spent $12 million on his own private airport and aerotrekking bases, where he created his own aerotrekking club called the Sky Gypsies. This group had over 150 members as of 2007. Even though John had very strict rules in order to keep things safe, such as no night flying, no alcohol, and a minimum of 20 hours of flying with an instructor before someone could go on their own, there was an accident. John's nephew and his student Robert Gilson would die in a crash, leading to John being sued for wrongful death by the Gilson family. This combined with the 2008 market crash would lead John to have to sell his properties in the US. He had allegedly went from having a fortune of $100 million to $4 million. Not starving, but still some pretty crazy losses. This is when John decided that he was going to pack up and move to a Caribbean island. His only rules were that English had to be the main language and that they had to have beautiful beaches. This is when everything starts to go off the rails. John ended up picking the country Belize, and at first he kept up his good behavior, setting up businesses that made cigars and even a ferry service that would ferry children to school for free. But then, John met Alison Adonzio, a 31-year-old microbiologist that believed that there were natural antibiotics in the Belizean jungles that could be used as a natural way to fight off diseases. John believed in her so much that he built her a jungle lab. John would then start spending his time at a saloon called the Lover's Bar. After a while, he found out that this place doubled as a brothel. John was probably the worst customer that business could have had. He didn't drink, and he didn't want any of their services either. John also allegedly just sat there watching other customers. But at the same time, John was one of the richest men in the country, so kicking him out wouldn't be a smart business move either. So the slimy owner, Evaristio Novello, did something beyond bad, like worse than anything I've ever talked about on this channel before. Mr. Novello brought one of his girls named Amy Emschweiler to John's home in order to have her tell him a sob story with the hopes of getting close to John. The goal was then to get John to fall in love with Amy, kill him, and take all his money. Amy was also 16 and told John that she was 18. Thankfully for Mr. McAfee, this plan didn't work, and this is what he had to say about it.
One of the other famous stories that came out of there was obviously your girlfriend, Amy Imschwiller, who the reports, I think you've talked about, tried to shoot you in the head, and yet you didn't kick her out afterwards. That, to a lot of people, that would be a surprise. Tell me what made you decide to do that?
Okay, you live in London, and probably you've spent much of your life living in a civilized society where you have laws and where the atrocities that much of the third world experiences daily are just unheard of. Amy, for one, and many girls in police, has a horrific story of abuse, which if I told you, you could not believe it. Of course she's not going to be well. Of course she's going to have, issues. When she tried to shoot me in the head, what I saw was a frightened child. What I saw was a confused girl that had been so abused physically, emotionally, beyond any description, that what are you going to do? I mean, just throw her out? That doesn't help her. All she did was burst my eardrum. I'm deaf in one ear now, but I don't have a bullet in my head. I hate to... Forgiveness is one of the graces that we have as human beings, and can I be faulted for indulging in it?
Yeah, you heard that right. After she tried to shoot him while he was sleeping and failed, John still let her live with him. What was Amy's punishment for trying to kill John, you might be asking? No TV or phone for a month, and according to the article from The Wired, she said, "But I didn't even kill you." John then realized that Belize had a huge crime problem and did what any reasonable man would do in his situation: create their own outer heaven. John paid for a new police station, and after also decking out the police, essentially turned them into his local informants. At this time, John got the idea into his head that the town he was living in was actually a shipping hub that brought drugs from South America to North America. The Belizean government got suspicious of John and raided his home under the assumption that he was making drugs in his jungle lab. This is John's version of those events. Note, because he does a lot of pausing and rambling, I'll be cutting those parts out.
Bought a huge piece of property, built a serious compound for millions of dollars, staffed it with very dangerous people, all of them heavily armed, and basically called attention to myself, which is one of the stupidest things I've ever done. You get stupid as you get older. In any case, I'd been there for a year and a half, and the local political authority in the largest district in police came to me and said, "Mr. McAfee, our election's coming up in 5 months. If you would donate $2 million to our party, here's what we would do. We would give you 1 million acres along the river." Well, that could eventually be worth billions, but I probably wouldn't live that long. Tax breaks, all the you could ever goddamn imagine. I idiotically said no. Now, what idiot says no when the person coming is representing the goddamn government, and they have 17,000 soldiers with AR-15s, tanks, and helicopters? No. Who does that? Well, I do. I'm stupid. I said no. I should have said 2 million. Let me give you 4 or 10. No, I said no.
This drug, while normally white, would be made a tan color by John. This gave it the name tan. Another name for this drug that you're probably more familiar with, however, is bath salts. But John couldn't do this alone, so he went onto a drug forum called Blue Light to ask for help, and even showed off his lab. As you can see, John had quite the setup over here. What do you say we read his first post? "Hello everyone, I've been lurking here for years and just recently decided to join up. I'm hoping to get some help here. I'm a huge fan of MDPV, not the white hydroxycide. It's inconceivable that anyone on the planet would willingly put that into their bodies. I'm taking the freebase form. I think that many of you don't bother to freebase it yourself has at least tasted the freebase version when it was widely available as TAN, MDPV. I think that's the finest drug ever conceived. Not just for the indescribable hypersexuality, but also for the smooth euphoria, mild come down. My question is this: how can I more easily separate the oil from the precipice using some mechanical means? Here's the nightmarish process I've been going through so far. For anyone who freebases MDPV, by the way, the oil is dangerous beyond belief. When I first started doing this, I accidentally got a few drops on my fingers while handling a used flask and didn't sleep for 4 days. I had visual and auditory hallucinations. And the worst paranoia of my life. It's all the bad aspects of white MDPV times 100. If you think the come down from the white MDPV is bad, rub this oil into your skin. You'll be begging for a 100 milligram dose of the white in exchange. Use rubber gloves, people. John would also talk about how he was his own guinea pig and everything was tested on him. I am my only test subject for these experiments. I temporarily blinded myself for 3 hours after drying and ingesting a brown goo that appeared after 5 days of incubating an odd gray precipice after an ether/accelerate experiment with PV. I once ended up with a dark brown substance that looked similar to the darker tan PV versions. It gave me an incapacitating headache that lasted 4 days. I had overheated the PV oil during precipitation and created something horrible. I got PV oil on my skin and didn't sleep for 72 hours, during which time, hellish visual and auditory hallucinations had me locked in the bathroom where I hid in the bathtub for 30 hours. Somehow, at this time, there was an imposter drug and John had figured out a way to smell the difference. We're gonna have to use a little Christianism for this one, and I don't think it's gonna be hard to figure out which one it is. Odor is the first clue. MDPV has a fragrance raging from a Swedish chemical. Smells to a dark, earthly, old potato smell, depending on how it was processed and what impurities it contains. 10, no matter what purity, invariably smells like stale navy, and the fragrance is powerful. It overpowers anything you mix it with. When you get your tan, open the bag and immediately put your nose to it. If you don't smell stale navy, it's not real. Well, one day, John actually talked about these forum posts when he went on Joe Rogan, saying that the whole thing was just one big troll.
And the other reason why they would suspect that there was some crazy drugs involved was because of forum posts that have been attributed to you that were all about purifying what the chemicals known as bath salts and turning them into some crazy new, more concentrated form of something that makes you hypersexual. And all these these posts online were attributed to you. Are these things you actually wrote?
No, absolutely, I wrote them. And if you go there, the site is Blue Light. It's the largest drug forum in the world. And basically, 10 years ago, a drug called MDPV-10, a mythical drug, people claim to have found with magical properties, and the myth continues on. My post was claiming to have rediscovered the formula for it. Now, the chemists online, there are about 200 chemists on Blue Light, all said, this is a hoax, this is total nonsense, and they wandered off. The rank and file followed through with it. I am a practical jokester. I have a lot of free time, and I just like to have fun.
So you
however,
just
had I
trolled?
truly rediscovered that formula, I would go to Bayer Laboratories in Germany with the formula and a sample and demand a check for $1 billion. What would I be doing here?
Eventually, John started testing this drug out on different people, and after 2 incidents, one involving a guy on tan getting arrested, and another involving his dogs, John realized that he needed a way to control how much people would take at a time. John's solution was mixing it with another drug that if you took too much of, you would get nosebleeds and a headache. John, the once sober yoga instructor, then gave a bunch of tan to Mr. Novello, who would then give it to his customers and employees. All of that behavior is what eventually led to the gang suppression unit raiding his home. Now, I want you to listen to this one clip and just remember it.
Do I sound like a demented, paranoid schizophrenic or not?
Wow. Well, I would have to be like right next to you and look you in the eyes to answer that honestly.
Do I sound like a demented, paranoid schizophrenic? This is John explaining it on PKA, and I want you to tell me if that's how he sounds.
Armed soldiers from the gang suppression unit, which reported directly to the Prime Minister. It's the equivalent of the Navy SEALs in America, stormed my property, arrested me, shot my dog in front of my eyes, saying, Mr. McAfee, if you do not think we're serious, boom! The dog's head exploded in front of me.
My goodness.
It sucks.
That's sad.
I just said, I see you're serious. What is your name, my friend? Anyway, so now, it's been a terrible day. I was tortured. They destroyed my lab where I was doing antibiotic research. It cost me $500,000 in damages, and then just left.
My goodness. What kind of torture were they putting you through?
I'd rather anyway, so the next day, the same gentleman who asked for the $2 million came back and said, "Oh, Mr. McAfee, good. We are so sorry. We made a mistake. We had bad information. Please forgive us." And Mr. McAfee, by the way, have you reconsidered your donation?
Believe it or not, after being raided, John was found innocent of all accusations made against him because at the time, bath salts were completely legal in Belize. But just because he was found innocent of that doesn't mean that he wasn't doing anything illegal. Let's start with the one that he admitted on a little show called State of Mind, hosted by the late David Stay, otherwise known as Mandar.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Mr. John McAfee.
It is. Is this voice only?
No, I'm going to turn. This is what I'm going to do, John. Hey, listen, first of all, thank you so much. This is very exciting.
No, thank you. Can you turn your video on? I like to see who I'm talking to.
I do have the video. My video should be on, but I think oh, wait, bro. Hold on. Does this help? Is that me?
Sorry about that little intro, but I had to. I miss David a lot. Here, John talks about how he shipped drugs all over the world.
I got your take on everything. Now, I understand you have this big drug trafficking ring, and I want to know how I can get some of those drugs.
You know, listen, my drug trafficking ring has suffered, tremendously during lockdown. Because what do drug traffickers rely on? Mobility, for fuck's sake. We got to get, for example, cocaine, which is in high demand.
Yes, how do I get that? I can't get it anymore.
Right. Well, let me tell you how we used to do it. We'd get the drugs in Colombia. We'd take them by boat from Colombia to Cancun in Mexico, passing Belize, which charged massive duties to get your drugs overland from Guatemala to Chetumal in Mexico. So we stopped doing that. So now we take our drugs straight from Colombia to Mexico, where they are taken from Cancun to Veracruz, and either from Veracruz straight across to Miami, which is just a couple hundred miles, or overland to Texarkana. Not Texarkana, to Mexicali on the border of California. And then we would take mules and move them across the border. Then from the U.S., we could fly them anywhere because the U.S. is stupid. They got no no police that actually function. So once you get your drugs in America, you're free. You can ship them anywhere in the world.
Now, John, on the side
the point is, but to get our drugs to America now, even like my last shipment of 200 tons of cocaine, we got it across the border into California, but hey, there's nobody to pick up in a goddamn truck and take it to an airport. So we can't get them to Germany. And all my German clients are just pissed off and angry. The reason I'm really in hiding is not
because of the U.S. government. It's because the goddamn Germans are trying to whack me. I have not delivered the drugs. And that's just cocaine. Listen, the biggest goddamn problem is heroin. We've got to bring that fucker all the way from Afghanistan. Do you understand the goddamn problems? So, no, I am pissed off, my friend.
I don't blame you. Now, I do have another question for you. Is there any
Yes,
way I can get a job with the Army of Belize? Even though I
With
can't,
who?
even, I will not. Your army. You got an army in Belize.
Well, yes, I do. But, I mean, you're not supposed to know that. How did you know that? The ordinary people just working ordinary jobs in the tourist trade. By the way, half of my army in Belize is now unemployed because they're goddamn tourists in Belize. Right? So what are they doing? They're at home abusing their wives.
Of course, that's not the only crime that John has been accused of committing. But, unlike the others, this one he would always deny.
These speculations about this. Let's just say what you're wanted for. First of all, your next door neighbor turned up dead, and you had to flee for your safety because you're sure rather that there's some sort of a conspiracy and that they're going to try to not only blame you for that, but you believe even possibly harm you or kill you.
Well, it's not that I believe it. I know it for a fact, sir.
You know it for a
fact. By the way, he was not my next door neighbor. He lived about 200 yards down the beach. I barely knew the gentleman.
Oh, okay. And there was no dispute between you and this gentleman?
I'm sorry, there's no what?
There was no dispute between you and this gentleman?
Oh, absolutely there was a dispute, but it was nothing more than a dispute that all neighbors face. He did not like my dogs. I didn't speak much with the gentleman. He drank more than the average person, and I didn't get along. And he did not like the dogs barking at night. And quite frankly, I didn't like them barking at night either. They annoyed me, so I understood his complaint. But as to being hostile or hateful, absolutely not.
But someone poisoned your dogs.
They did, and it was the night before. It could not have been him. He owns dogs himself, or owned dogs. Any dog lover, I don't know whether you have dogs or not, Joe, but no dog lover, no one who has dogs would ever harm another dog, certainly not that way. And the poison used was the most horrible. They were vomiting blood, they were shitting blood. I had to put them out of their misery. No one would do that to a dog if they love dogs.
So you feel like someone else was involved and they did it, and this man is being connected to that because he died. Now, why are they blaming it on you?
Okay, let me give you the history. In the last day of April of this year, I woke up at 6 in the morning to 42 armed soldiers in full riot gear carrying automatic weapons storming my property in Orange Walk on the River. I was held in handcuffs behind my back in the sun for 14 hours without food or water. At one point, by the way, I asked a guard for food and water, not just for me, but for everyone else. The guard's response was, "Do I look like a chef to you?" Now, indeed, he did not look like a chef, so it was my mistake.
That's right. John's neighbor, Gregory Fall, was murdered in his own home suspiciously after he reported John to the mayor about how John's 11 dogs wouldn't stop barking and were essentially allowed to do whatever they wanted. One day, after John's dogs had attacked some random tourist, Greg had finally had enough and confronted Mr. McAfee. John told Greg that if Greg ever stepped onto his property, he'd kill Greg, and Greg said that he was going to poison John's dogs. Well, John's dogs did end up poisoned, and he would have to end up putting 9 of them down himself. While John claimed that it was the government that killed his dogs and not Gregory, it's kind of hard to believe when John immediately fled his home afterwards.
The neighbor probably sucked.
Yeah, he didn't just kill him because they were awesome, because they only mowed the grass.
Hey, could you?
Didn't the neighbor do something to his dog, too?
That's what I heard.
What?
Yeah, the neighbor did something to his dog. Maybe killed one of his dogs.
That's over the line.
Sure,
that's what I'm saying. Then you got to go full John Wick.
Yeah, it's cool when John Wick did it.
Yeah, that's how you do it.
Exactly.
Kill my dog?
Imagine hurting Carl.
Yeah.
I would never shoot my neighbor.
Yeah. What you say?
That's fucking jacked
They're
out.
doing meth and be like, they killed my dog?
Not just meth, but
That's
meth.
a good thing I have armed guards.
Meth
Yeah.
he engineered in a fucking lab he built on his property.
Breaking
that he
Bad.
documented online. He wanted the community to know about this meth lab. He wanted them to know about how proficient his meth lab was, and how fucking really like scientifically accurate everything. He was measuring everything perfectly, and had beakers and all this. He documented it all.
It's awesome.
Damn.
Fucking meth lab in Belize.
He's not
And
in
then
the
you can call it
neighborhood watch.
bath salts all day, but what it is that's just engineered meth. That's what bath salts was. They took bath salts.
What's the other meth? Not engineered?
It's just different. It's like, so there's different, like there's.
John, after managing to evade the police for 3 weeks, fled the country and got into Guatemala illegally, trying to become an asylum seeker.
John, where are you going?
To jail.
Unfortunately for John, however, he was denied asylum status and was set to be deported back to Belize to face trial. But then, John had an idea. John faked a heart attack and managed to buy his lawyer enough time that while he was still going to be deported, would be deported into the United States instead of Belize. Fun fact, it was after being deported and getting into the USA that he met his next wife, Janice.
So it was about it was like 2 a.m. when we met. He had just gotten deported from Guatemala to Miami, and I wasn't even supposed to. I was a working girl at the time, a prostitute, so I wasn't even like supposed to be outside because it was a Wednesday going into Thursday, I believe, which are usually very slow days, and so I was actually at home sleeping.
Now,
But-
for you men who are listening, if you're on a tight budget and you're looking for a decent hoe, Wednesdays, you can get serious fucking deals. Continue, baby.
This is actually probably true. But
I know it for a
anyways.
fact. I've been around the block, boys. The same.
Yes, any major city, probably Wednesdays are your best bet because they're looking to make deals. Yes. Okay. Is that what you wanted me to say?
Yes, thank you. Trying to help the men at the audience. That's all.
And trust me, the crypto community, they need it. They need all the help they can get.
Oh, do they not? Jesus. I mean, I've never seen a more clueless community. But go ahead, baby. I'm sorry.
It's okay. So anyways, I was out and I was actually going to leave South Beach to go to somewhere else. And my car happened to be parked near his hotel. And I saw him standing on the corner talking to someone. And as I walked past him, our eyes met. And, I smiled and nodded, but I kept it moving because, I sized him up. I'm like, he doesn't look like he has any money. And he doesn't look like he wants to be bothered with me. Right. And so that was, I think, a true assessment. And so, but after I walked by, I turned around and I noticed he was looking at my ass. And so I was like, I got somebody here, but I kept it pushing anyway. So when I got to his hotel, the night security comes outside and, he's kind of telling us what's going on, what parties are in town, who's in town, whatever. And he looks down the street and he sees John and he was like, well, hey, you know who that is, right? And I'm like, no, who is it? He said, it's John McAfee. And I'm like, well, who the fuck is that? And so he says, you know the McAfee antivirus? I was like, yes, I know what that is. He said, well, that's the creator of it. And so, of course, my spidey senses are like, oh. And so I grabbed my girlfriend and we ran down the street and caught up to him. And he was actually in front of the news cafe having a cigarette talking to the people there. No, you weren't. You were standing. And so I walked up to him and I asked him for a cigarette. And so as he was lighting me a cigarette, he said, what are you girls out here doing, drugging and rolling old men? To which I replied, no, we don't use drugs. And so that basically told him that, yes, I know, well, basically he was saying he knew the score.
We told the truth about each other up front. I let her know. I've been around the block. You girls are out here drugging and rolling old men. Listen, I know where it's at, right?
And I let him know I'm good enough to not need drugs.
Yeah,
so.
She's good enough. She doesn't need drugs. And okay, well,
sorry. And so, after, that little bit of conversation, he kind of looked like, me, okay, am I doing this? And he's like, kind of like, yeah, I'm doing this. So he's like, come on, what do you got? I mean, do you want to sit and have a cup of coffee? And so I'm like, yeah, sure. And so, we ordered the coffee and I thought I'd just get it out the way. So I was like, hey, are you looking for some fun tonight? You can get a half price, whatever, 2 for 1 sort of deal, just to get the business out of the way. Yes. And he's like, I'm so not interested. And so I said, okay, well, what is going on with you? Like, who are you? What's your story? What's going on? And so I think this took him back because he was like, really, you don't know what's happening with me? Because he was top of the news, but I had no idea. I didn't watch the news. I didn't know what was going on with him. So he proceeded to tell me his side of his story of what was happening in Belize and what led him to being, there in Miami with me, this chance meeting. So.
While John never faced trial in Belize, he was sued for wrongful death in the United States and was ordered to pay Gregory's family $25 million in wrongful death damages, which he never paid, by the way. So what could come next for John after all this? Oh yeah, he decided to run for president of the United States.
Why are you a more serious candidate than, say, Donald Trump?
I don't know where the non-seriousness comes from, because I have never done anything, whether it's start a business or what have you, without knowing I was going to succeed. And for a year and a half, my advisors, my friends, my fans have been urging me to run for president. I only agreed when I realized, okay, I know how to win. And I will win this. I'm 70 years old. I can't waste a year of my life campaigning for nothing. So seriousness, absolutely. As to my life, they think, my life is not serious. I don't know anybody with a more serious life. I don't know any other candidate who has hid in the jungles of Central America while an entire army was searching for them. I don't know anybody who spent weeks in a Guatemalan jail sleeping on a concrete floor. I don't know. It sounds serious to me. It doesn't matter whether no third-party candidate has won before. Do you want a two-party system to go in perpetuity in this country? Look at the mess it has created.
We don't get very political on this channel often, so we're going to do some highlights from the 2016 Libertarian presidential debate. Obviously, however, this is going to focus on John. It's highlight time.
Mr. John McAfee. Mr. McAfee has a degree in mathematics from Roanoke College. He is an internationally recognized pioneer in cybersecurity. He developed the very first antivirus protection system. Good luck. Larry Elder. Mr. McAfee, you have 30 seconds for an opening statement.
God bless you, sir. I have debated these gentlemen, and we have debated each other multiple times. There is not one iota of difference between any of us in terms of our principles. Decriminalize marijuana, bring our troops home, end the madness of our education system, reduce the size of government, hamstring the DEA, and let all of the people out of prison who have nonviolent crimes. Now, please, no, I only have 30 seconds, please, people. Please. Now, if I get one more question about what we will do first day in office, no offense, I will lose it up here. I want some questions, please, on how we can help the grassroots of this country.
Time.
Please. Thank you.
Mr. Perry.
I have lived through 14 presidential elections, and I can promise you, whether the Democrats or the Republicans have gotten in, my life has been worse. There has been more government control and oppression. I have lost my freedom and my privacy. My taxes have gone up. To me, I don't care. I want to know who the wizard is behind the curtain that creates these clowns that we're voting for. Please.
Let us turn, gentlemen, to the economy.
None of us are going to pass a child drowning in a river, even if we're dressed in a tuxedo heading to our wedding. You don't think about it, you jump in, you save the child. Everyone has a neighbor, a friend, someone who is going to care. Libertarianism is not heartlessness. It's the opening of the heart to your neighbor and other human beings.
Mr. McAfee, does global warming or climate change pose a threat to the planet?
Of course it does. We're not stupid people. The oceans are rising. Green areas are turning into deserts. However, with all the money in our government, has anything changed? No. The military is the largest polluter on this planet. Government can't fix it. Give us a chance. Maybe we can work it out. This government survived, and this nation survived for 150 years with no income taxes. How was that possible? We had a government that was doing reasonable things at small cost. No taxation that involves the sweat of your brow can possibly be legal. And taxation was illegal until 1916. We can fund this government voluntarily. We have national parks. If you want to go to the park, pay some money. If you want to drive on a road, pay $1 for every 1,000 miles you drive. We can do this. But to do this, we have to stop the insanity of a government out of control and growing like a weed, and we can do that. What good can any judge do if our system of law is broken? There exist in America more laws than an average reader could read, reading 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 600 years. Please, why don't we have a budget for law? And every time you throw one in, you have to throw one out. We got by with 10 for thousands of years. So does it matter if we have a broken legal system created by Congress? Jesus could not judge properly.
Right on cue. I didn't know he was in the house. Mr. Perry. Mr. Perry. Should all drug use be made legal or decriminalized, whether marijuana or heroin? And what do you say about people who argue that if you do that, it would lead to more rampant drug abuse?
The drug uses remain constant, whether it is criminalized or decriminalized, and all drugs should be decriminalized. I have been in prison more than I'm sure most of any 10 of you combined for drug use. So I promise you, that hasn't stopped me, or did not until at the age of 38. I've been clean since 38. It did not stop me from using drugs. Nothing will. Neither, if it were free, would I have used any more. I used as much as my body would tolerate of everything.
That John McAfee, world-class, badass libertarian.
Thank you, Dr. Feldman.
So I think that everybody watching this video already knows that John didn't become the president back in 2016. But John is a man that can change lifestyles on a whim and began going around the world teaching about cybersecurity and how behind the times the world really is on it. Also, notice the tall boy next to him.
Before diving into our discussions, how would you describe the sense of security in the digital world in 2017?
How would I describe the sense of security? Well, we have none. There is no security whatsoever. I think this is the problem that cybersecurity professionals like myself face every day. I see people walking around, everyone has their phones out. While you are watching your phone is watching you. This is just a fact of life. The operating system is designed specifically to watch you, listen to you, find out where you are in order to help you. It needs to know who your friends are. It needs to know what you're saying in your text messages. It needs to listen to you sometimes. And so you're looking at your phone and you have all of these facilities, but it is the world's greatest spy device, designed as a spy device. Now, there's nothing wrong with that as long as the person spying on you is spying on you for benign reasons, meaning maybe they just want to sell you something. They notice that you just mentioned to someone that you were hungry, and they know where you are, and there's a Chinese or a Japanese restaurant nearby, and they know you like Japanese and Chinese food because you frequently go there. And they say, oh, by the way, there's a Japanese restaurant right around the corner. That's cool. I can choose to say no. But hackers use those same facilities. They are built into the operating system. So if a hacker gets access to those facilities, they may choose to empty my bank account without my permission or knowledge, or to steal my identity, or to start charging things on my credit cards, or if I have a Bitcoin wallet or an Ethereum wallet, they can empty my wallets.
That's the problem that we have, and that's just on the individual level. On the corporate level, it's horrific because the problem is magnified by the number of people within the corporation. And on the nation-state level, it's even more horrific because the nation-states have been spending years and literally billions of dollars weaponizing software to the point that almost every developed nation has the ability to press a button and destroy the power grid in any other nation.
Fast forward to 2017, and an attempt was allegedly made on John's life where he was poisoned before an event called Freedom Fest. Someone attempted to off me. If you consider this petty, then I ask you the opportunity to explain the facts of life to you. And you know what? John wasn't screwing around. John was actually in the hospital. Like, look at him. John was actually poisoned, and in this phone call, you can hear him thanking one of the people that helped him.
Good morning. How are you, hon?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I am doing good. I have a videographer who's recording and reporting on what happened. Do you mind if they just record my conversation with you? They won't use your name or number or anything.
Okay, not a problem.
Good. So anyway, first and foremost, I would like to thank you again for saving my life, and you and Janice. When they took me to your safe house, I was certainly not in very good shape.
I know.
Pardon?
I know. I'm sorry you are being in such excruciating pain.
Well, things are getting better now, actually. The thing I'd like you to talk about is basically the what condition I was in when I arrived there. They brought me there, and I was half in consciousness, half out of consciousness for quite a while.
Yes, I know that. I saw it.
And you were cleaning up all these spots were showing up all over my body and bleeding, and you took care of that, and of course the.
Did they actually heal for you?
Yes, that part is gone. I'm not bleeding through any part of my body now except my arm. I'm still urinating blood, and I'm still passing blood through my rectum. But other than that, I'm fine. But those spots have stopped, which worried me the most. So, the spots were very interesting. They would just come up and then bleed profusely, and then quit. So. That was such an unusual situation. But in any case, when...
That was really like, and it's all over your body was.
Yes, all of my body. I was
arms, your legs,
yes, I was,
your face.
My face, everything. I was bleeding through my whole body. But you did save my life. I want you to know that. And when they delivered Janice to the safe house, I knew I was going to be okay. Between the two of you, I knew you were not going to let me expire.
So there were people after John at this point, or at least he believed there were, albeit with a good reason. So one night, while in bed, John thought that he heard someone breaking in and knew just what to do. Antivirus inventor John McAfee, 71, went on a naked shooting spree because the Belize government wants to assassinate him. John McAfee went on a naked shooting spree in September when he thought he heard intruders. He was in the middle of having sex with his wife when his dog started barking. He jumped out of his bed naked and started shooting at the walls and ceiling. John believes the Belize government wants to assassinate him because he hacked in and stole information. The 71-year-old invented the household antivirus program. The antivirus software inventor started firing bullets into the walls and ceiling of his Tennessee home when his aggressive dog started barking wildly. He thought he heard movement in the crawl space under our bedroom and in the attic, Janice said in a statement to the FBI. He then fired his gun into both areas. The gunshots woke Alex Handrick, who lived below the couple in a basement apartment and worked as a security guard for the building. The 28-year-old, who served in the army for 8 years, grabbed his assault rifle and found a completely naked McAfee firing his gun at the living room ceiling. McAfee told Newsweek he is being stalked by the Belize government and claims they want to kill him because he hacked in and stole secret government information. That article was written by the Daily Mail, and John would respond to it on his Facebook. Finally, I made it into the world's largest gossip rag. I have arrived. They omitted, of course, my wife's confession to the FBI that with her help, armed guards were indeed hiding in the attic and crawl space while I was shooting. The sound of panic from them still amuses me. From that point on, in pretty much every interview with John, he can be seen strapped.
If I were to get to Ecuador from Hong Kong, the last country in the world I'd go through is Russia. You've got 50 different options.
In 2018, John would once again run for president. He thought for some reason it would be a good idea to mention how many bath salts he's done at the same time, however.
I'm John McAfee. I'm running for president again in 2020. I ran in 2012 and got beaten out by that prick, Governor Johnson. I'm running again. The issue of my consumption of bath salts has got to come up. Well, what the f*** is bath salts? No, they're not things that you put in the bath and then you soak yourself. No. These are research chemicals begun under the reign of Mao Zedong and continue throughout. In China, they've invented some amazing, supposedly nootropics to make you smarter, but also things to make you dumber if you're an enemy of China. I've taken them all, unfortunately. More than you and 10 of your friends could ever carry. Now, since the question's going to come up, I'm going to answer it now. Yes, I've taken bath salts, every one of them. Why bath salts? Because they were perfectly legal, and yet they were chemicals. You couldn't say, snort this up your nose, or shoot this in a vein, or shove this up your ass. No, because that's illegal in America. You could say, put this in your bathtub and soak in it. Those of us who knew better go, yeah. Things like MDPV. They came out in beautiful colored packages. Ultimate Sextasy. Ivory Wave. Beautiful, beautiful things. By the way, if anybody has any of the Ultimate Sextasy left with the real gray powders, $100 for a packet. I know you only paid $3 for it. Call me. Anyway, so yes, I took these things. Miraculous motherfucking things. Again, making LSD. Ayahuasca look like fucking baby aspirin. No, fuck that. Not baby aspirin. Unsweetened tea. Mind expanding. So yes, I took them. I'm a goddamn psychonaut. That's what they called ourselves. The psychonauts. We would take all the from China. We would draw straws about who's going to snort it first or shoot it first or up the old a-hole first, and we'd watch. If the guy died, we probably wouldn't try it again. If he just freaked out, we'd take a smaller amount ourselves. Yes, I did. So f*** you if you do not like it, because you're not going to vote for me anyway. In any case, God bless you all. I love all of my followers, and good night.
Now, do you remember how earlier I said that John committed 3 crimes in Belize? 2 that he admitted to, and 1 that he didn't? Well, the 3rd crime didn't really matter until this point, and not gonna lie, it's pretty based. John had been charged with felony tax evasion for not paying his income taxes in 8 years. And when push came to shove, John did what anyone else would do, and fled the country on an $8 million yacht while running for president in the beginning of 2019.
I have not paid taxes for 8 years. I've made no secret of it. I have not filed returns. Every year I tell the IRS, I'm not filing a return. I have no intention of doing so. Come and find me. Not illegal? Today, January 22nd, the IRS has convened a grand jury in the state of Tennessee to charge myself, my wife, Mrs. McAfee, 4 of my campaign workers with unspecified IRS crimes of a felonious nature. Now, they want to silence me. I will not allow that. I am running my campaign in exile on this boat for the duration. I will not allow them to imprison me and shut my voice down, which they will do immediately. Why? I am a flight risk. Obviously, I am in flight. I will be putting videos out every day. Today, many, to explain to you what has happened. Today, crypto community, we are at war. And I am on the front lines. And I'll be saying more later. Thank you.
From this point on, John really started going crazy. And I know what a lot of you are thinking right now. He already was crazy. The dude ran a drug lab in the jungle, drove one of the most dangerous vehicles on the planet, likely killed someone, and more. But all those clips that I've shown so far, where he's talking like this, people, were from this point on when he went on his pirate adventure. And like all good pirate stories, at one point he owned a parrot, and another point he was boarded. This is Logie on fire again. I have good reason to suspect that John McAfee, the Miss McAfee, and other companions have been detained by authorities at their latest port of call. I'll be operating this account, providing updates as soon as they become possible. I last spoke with John as his boat was being boarded. The situation was tense but controlled. Our conversation was cut short by authorities confiscating their phones. The bastards wouldn't even give him a cigarette. If John misses his next check-in, events will be set into motion that I cannot prevent once they have begun. John has secreted data with individuals across the world. I know neither their identities or locations. They will release their payloads if John goes missing. Our campaign for individual freedom and an end to state-sponsored tyranny will continue despite these developments. On behalf of the free people of the world, I demand the release of John McAfee and his companions. From wherever they are being held, this will not stand. John had even predicted this fiasco a few days prior in a tweet with his wife Janice, saying, "The CIA has attempted to collect us. We are at sea now, and will report more soon. I will continue to be dark for the next few days." Thankfully for John and friends, they were let go just 4 days later. Leaving detention, don't judge my looks. 4 days of confinement. I was well treated, my superiors were friendly and helpful. In spite of the helpful circumstances, we've decided to move on. More later. John would go into more detail when talking to Moist Critical about this on the official podcast.
We went from being in a jail with rusty bars, no windows, full of flies, mosquitoes, and filth. But they did have mattresses. God damn it, that's rare in one of those jails. But in any case, I was happy for the mattresses. But we went from that to a limousine to the VIP section of the Santo Domingo International Airport, where we were served by people in fucking tuxedos. All right, so because if this case had gone to the courts, I mean, it would have unraveled the Dominican Republic government and embarrassed the U.S. beyond anything imaginable. Because this was a CIA setup. They had illegally boarded our boat before we were even allowed to check into the country. They didn't let us talk to customs, immigration, nothing. And they stupidly, why? Here's the problem. The CIA sets up all these spectacularly subtle web works. And then when you finally get to the bottom, like the Dominican Republic police, which have at best a third grade education, and most can, right? But many can. But they video everything. Those are used to, grabbing drug dealers and everything, including everything they did, which is now on record. And if it was shown that they actually boarded our boat prior to allowing me to talk to customs, all right, and they charged me with bringing weapons into the country without declaring them. I said, well, when I fucking declare them, you won't let me talk to the person I must declare them to. But that was all videoed. So had it gone to courts, it would have unraveled a whole lot of shit. So we squeaked by, got to London, and that's the last place I'll identify that we have been in the past 4 months.
Okay, I gotcha. What's their official reason for hunting you? I know there aren't really any charges currently active ones against you for the murder, so why is the U.S. government hunting you?
Oh, they got a hunting license that's still valid. And, if they don't bag me soon, well, they got to get a new license. Now, look me. Okay, first and foremost, I'm a libertarian. I believe that income taxes are illegal and unconstitutional.
Amen.
And 10 years ago, almost, I stopped paying. Now I send letters.
We might have a clue.
No, not only did I not pay them, I didn't even file. I sent a letter to the government saying taxation's illegal. I'm not filing. You know where I live. Now, for 8 years, nothing happened. I mean, why bother working with an old man who's already paid, way over $50 million in taxes in his lifetime? Until I started getting on the stage and talking about how cryptocurrency can free you from the financial system which controls you now.
John was even kind enough to give strategies for both sides of the upcoming civil war.
If you're anticipating civil war, I think I can help you. This is the layout, assuming we're having war. If this map looks backwards, it's not. My Polish printer assured me it was correct. Let's look first at the blue states, which are the liberals. Here we have on the West Coast, California and others, you're vastly outnumbered in terms of guns. I suggest you arm yourselves to the teeth with the latest Israeli weaponry, vastly superior. Colorado and New Mexico, I'm sorry, you're surrounded. See if Mexico won't annex you. The central north, you're too damn cold, no one wants you. And the northeast, just tell them you're part of Canada, they won't know the difference. And lastly, Florida. I suggest you change the state language to Spanish, and when the invaders look for El Baño, can't find one, they'll go home. Now then, for the red states, the conservatives, the gun owners, you should anticipate that the West Coast is going to arm itself to the fucking teeth with the latest Israeli weapons. I suggest you preempt this by selling them your Daisy BB rifles and tell them they're AR-15s. They won't know the fucking difference. Colorado and New Mexico, worthless land. Ignore it. See if you can sell it to Mexico. The central north, too damn cold. You don't want that. And the northeast, it's part of Canada. Ignore it. Finally, Florida, if you cannot sell it to Cuba, then blow the bridges and stock piranha in all the swamps. That will keep them busy till the war's over. And there you have it. I am impartial, and good luck to both sides. Thank you.
Now, if there's one day of the year that John must get a lot of presents, it's Father's Day, because he claims to have either 47 or 48 children, 61 grandchildren, and 19 great-grandchildren. Christmas and birthdays, on the other hand, would be pretty bad. Since you asked, I have 48 children, 61 grandchildren, 19 great-grandchildren. I have met none of my great-grandchildren.
Do you have a relationship with your children?
I have 48 children. Which of the 48?
You have 48 children?
I do.
Are they, you made them?
Did I make them? No, God made them. I provided some sperm. I mean, that's all I did.
And do you have a relationship with all 48 children?
I do not.
You do not?
With a very small minority. Well, here's why. I mean, most of the mothers I knew for a couple of nights at the most. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, they're in Taiwan and Vietnam and Canada and South America, Brazil, Belize, Guatemala. Yes, yeah, I'm sorry. I got around when I was a young man. No, most of them hate me. 75% of them sued me for child support. I'm not even sure I'm the father of at least 15% of them, but I'm accepting it. And why resist? Why fucking resist?
Amazing. So, John, did you have fun?
Well, there was a little thing that happened in 2020 that made everyone go into quarantine. While I can't show John's opinions on it, I can tell you that he did not like how the media was treating it. October 2020 was also the same time that John was arrested in Spain for not paying his taxes. John would let his followers know that he was alright, getting this message posted. Hello from prison, my friends. I am having a fascinating time. Spanish prison is not that bad. We can wear whatever clothes we want. We can smoke and socialize. It's like the Hilton without turn-down service. My cellmate is an ambassador's drug dealer. I wish I would have known him before. The prison yard is full of murderers, but mostly nice people. I spend most of my time with my back to the wall. I miss and love you all. I will update you more when I am able. John would then get one last voice message out to his followers, telling them how much he loved them and goodbye.
Most of you know my voice. For those that do not, my humor, which is obscure, certainly must shine through. In any case, it is actually me. But now the more important things. I love you all, and I miss being able to share videos and photos with you. It is impossible for America to extradite me. I do believe this. The documentation they have, quote, discovered about me, they simply pulls out of their ass. And the Spanish people and Spanish courts are not stupid. So, do not worry. I may even get out on bail in a week or two. And if not, I will eventually be freed here. I do miss you all and wish that I could share fully with you. I love you. Keep up the fight against the madness and cancer that's been invading America. Goodbye, my friends.
John's health quickly diminished while in prison, with him quickly losing 30 pounds. 2 months after the arrest, and Janice would talk about this in a video conference and just what other options there were.
My husband, John McAfee, was arrested October 3rd. The judge who oversaw his initial arrest sent him to provisional prison October 4th. This decision has been appealed by our lawyers to the National Court Criminal Chamber, Second Section, and the date of that hearing will be December 14th at 9:30 a.m. in the hearing chamber of the National Court in Madrid. The procedure being applied in Spain with regards to John's case is regulated in Law 4-1985 on passive extradition. The processing deadlines provided for in the law have been exceeded weeks ago, and he still remains in prison. Due to John's undue imprisonment, a request for habeas corpus was presented before the Montreal Court of Guard on December 1st. The head judge of that court rejected the request in favor of applying the toughest part of the law, which could keep John in prison for up to 2 years, awaiting the resolution of this procedure. This is depriving him the ability to properly prepare his defense with his American lawyers. John's stay at the Brienz 1 prison has rapidly deteriorated his body and has virtually destroyed his health. He has lost 15 kilograms of weight. He has major problems internally, and the medical team in the prison has done little to nothing to properly examine him. Through our lawyers, we have provided the prison with John's medical records, translated into Spanish, to provide proof of his medical conditions, and still they have done little to assist him. There are many alternative measures that can be taken to ensure John's presence in court, such as revoking his passport, an electronic bracelet to monitor his movements, or even house arrest. Any of these measures would ensure that John would be present for all future court appearances, and it would also ensure he would be able to receive the medical care he needs that is not available to him in the prison. John McAfee is a world-renowned individual, and despite this, I'm not asking for special treatment for him from the Spanish authorities. I'm simply asking them not to condemn my husband to die in their prison while awaiting the conclusion of the extradition process. My husband is ill and he has no intention of fleeing. Please release him so he can receive the proper medical care that he is so desperately in need of. Thank you everyone for your support and for helping to spread the word about John's situation.
Now, while I'm definitely an innocent until proven guilty kind of guy, John was probably the biggest flight risk on the planet. I mean, when Greg was murdered, John immediately hid from the government for 3 weeks before entering Guatemala illegally. When he got in trouble for not paying his taxes, his first instinct was to hop on a boat and get out of Dodge. I have zero doubt that if they had let him go, he would have ran away the first chance he got. And unfortunately, that's it. Even after making it clear that he would never Minecraft himself in prison, John died in that Spanish prison after he was supposed to be extradited back to America in June 2021, where he allegedly, and I really want to make sure I say allegedly, self-sunset. But just because he was dead, that wasn't the end of the weird things happening to John, because they kept his body in refrigeration for over 2 years, and after that, no matter how much I tried looking into it, I have no idea what happened to his body. In the PKA episode that John was a guest on, he was described in the comments as both a real-life Far Cry villain as well as being the combination of Captain Jack Sparrow and the Joker, both of which are true. There really is no addendum's final thought for this one. John could have done literally anything and I wouldn't have been shocked at it by the end of this one. I used to think the most successful people that I've made a video on were only Use-Me Blade and Ralph, because say what you want about them, but both of them had a point where they were the top dogs in their respective fields. John, on the other hand, managed to stack win after win, and anytime he got an L, he was able to turn it around. Plot armor is usually something reserved for fiction, but if there's anyone in our lifetime that had it, it would be John McAfee. As always, thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you soon. But wait, what's this?